Okay, Eve, I just almost done with our interviews. Just I have a few questions left, and this is, I think, one of our crux, very, very important things that I just want to ask you, and these one of the main reasons why we're doing these interviews is, what are some lessons that you learned as a missionary that God has taught you that you want to share with the next generation, so that the next generation and the church in general could benefit from your experience?
Yeah. Again, so many, but I think some of the key lessons, again, I was very young when God called and very young when I went to the field. And I didn't go with an organization. As I said, I just went as an independent. So I think that's also a very different journey. Everyone has a different journey, because some people need a church to go before, send them. Some need an organization to send them. And so I think that's also very important, to really have an understanding as much as possible what fits your personality, your relationship with your church, if you're going to have a mission organization, and to have prayer partners. Absolute key. Whether you have an organization or a church or not, you need people behind you that are praying. For me, that's been one of the biggest lessons, is that you have people supporting you through prayer more than financial support. Because if you have those prayers, that, I think, is when you're in the pit, or in dealing with some serious spiritual warfare, is when those prayers make the biggest difference. So one, prayer, both in your own personal prayer life, but those behind you. Second would be, wherever God is calling you, language and culture. To know the language and the culture of the area that you're being called to. So whether that means learning about language and culture before you go, but then also once you're on the ground, committing the first 1 to 2 years just to doing language and culture and history of the place that you're being called to. Because that's gonna, I think, help you to be that much more successful and impactful on the people that you've been called to reach. And then thirdly, the other big lesson that I've learned is to be humble, which is also very hard. But I've seen in my life how it's when God has humbled me, that has allowed me to be a better missionary, be a better Christian, to rely more on His Word and His power. And so prayer, language and culture, and then humility.
Wow, the last one you said, we all learn and we all want to be humble, but we don't like the lesson of being humbled.
Exactly.
The last question I have for you,
yes.
And thank you again for your clarity and your wisdom that God has given you, is that how can we pray for the country that you're serving?
Whether you're talking about the past, the present, or the future, as God has called me to communist nations, the system or the ideology of communism is an enemy to Christianity. It's an absolute opposition to Christianity. And so my prayer is that within this ideology, that one of the basic tenets is that there is no God, but yet we are coming to teach about, or to demonstrate and teach about, that there is a God who created all life, that there is a God who loves them, a God who is real and living, and so how to share the gospel in such a situation. When in communist nations, often you don't have the freedom to share. So how do you share in such a situation? And so, yeah, just to pray that those that are called to communist nations would have the wisdom of how to share in under such ideologies and such oppression. One, to pray for the leaders of those nations, that even, I mean, we know from the Old Testament, Nebuchadnezzar is one of the biggest examples of how these unrighteous leaders don't know God, but yet they are doing the will of God, because that's God is the God of all possibilities. And so, yeah, just pray for righteous leaders, and yeah, just pray for the existing church in the nation, that even though they are walking through persecution day in and day out, that in the midst of persecution they would not deny God, but they would be strengthened and emboldened, and that they would run with the gospel to their own people. So I think those 3 points I would say.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your dedication. And we're so glad that you're here and that you're able to share everything that you shared today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. God bless you.
Thanks for watching HNK Ministries, A Heart for North Korea. This was Eve. What are some of the lessons and prayers for the country? Blessings.